a lot of people in this country are burdened by high levels of debt because of the student loans they've had to take out. And you said shortly before the election, quotes, "I will deal with it." What did you mean by "I will deal with it"?
It was in the context of an interview with the New Musical Express and an interview I also did with the Independent, in which I pointed out there was a massive overhanging debt that many people dealt with. I recognised it was a huge burden. I did not make a commitment we would write it off because I couldn't at that stage. I pointed out we'd written the manifesto in a short space of time because it was a surprise election, but that we would look at ways of reducing that debt burden, recognising quite a lot of it is never going to be collected anyway, and try and reduce that level of burden. But the point we absolutely made was that we would abolish the student debt from the time we were elected, and were we now in government, we'd be taking measures to ensure that the 2017-18 students did not pay fees, or we would reimburse them if we couldn't get the legislation through in time.
That bit I completely understand.
And we were completely clear about that.
But if you're a young voter and you heard those words, "I will deal with it," you might have thought, Jeremy Corbyn is going to relieve me of my debt, but you won't.
What I said was we would deal with it by trying to reduce the burden of it. We never said we would completely abolish it because we were unaware of the size at that time. John McDonnell has established a working party to look at this policy, and we will be making a statement on it in the near future, which will set out what our plans are for the future.
Just this morning, Jeremy Corbyn has announced that the tuition fees will be abolished straight away from September if there's a Labour government, and that we will bring back immediately EMA and also that every existing student will have all their debts wiped off. That's fantastic news, isn't it, guys? Yeah.
What did you think of Corbyn's policy of getting rid of student loans?
Well, it's a fantasy unicorn type policy. It's completely irresponsible, and it's not credible, and it's not deliverable. The alternative to our sustainable and fair system, which shares the cost of higher education between the student and the general taxpayer, is one in which we would have to reimpose student number controls, the sector would shrink, universities' financial sustainability would be called into question, and many fewer people from disadvantaged backgrounds would end up going to university. That's what the Labour policy would mean.
If you remember, tuition fees were introduced under the Labour government. They were subsequently increased under the coalition. We need to see how it's worked.
So who's panicking there? The government or Labour, or who's
well, the Labour Party have a ridiculously populist programme which doesn't really stand up to investigation. I mean, if you don't have any form of fees, I mean, who pays for universities? And how do you end this discrimination between the 40% of students who go to university and who would be subsidised, as opposed to the 60% who don't? And that would be highly inequitable.
They're winning a lot of votes, though, aren't they?
It is, and that's why I think we really need to look at it. But university is about the only bit of the publicly financed sector of the economy which are flourishing. And, for goodness sake, with some cheap populist gesture, killing that off would be a very dangerous and stupid thing to do.